Wow. All right, let's bring out our panelists this morning. Tony Shanghai, business consultant, Axof Solutions Limited. Thank you for making time.
Good morning.
We have Evelyn Kasina, CEO, Evminet. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Fantastic. And we also have George Gish Oshiri, CEO, Arambe Sacco.
That's
I almost said Arambe Stag. Arambe Sacco. Thank you for coming in this morning. And we have Waidaka Gatumia, CEO, Centonomy.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yes. Thanks for making time.
Thank you.
Let's take a look at the front page of the Daily Nation. And Tony, I'll start with you. Raila is eyeing DP job, Ruto allies now cry, and there's the handshake. Do you think, from where you stand, from the business perspective, was the handshake even a good idea, now that all these things are coming out?
Depends on whose perspective you are asking. If you're asking the politicians who are saying DP is eyeing, Raila is eyeing DP's position, they will say handshake was not good. But yes, it's a good thing. If you remember, before the handshake, mostly the country was not really in a good position in terms of the environment to do business, and that's what interests us. So from where I sit, handshake was a good thing. If the 12 points, which we are yet to know where we are at, were to be implemented. But as far as the business environment and creating that enabling environment for people to do business is concerned, yes, handshake was a good thing.
For the business people, it was fine. But are we now getting into a series of conversations and now people are losing track? Because this is a mix of politics and war and graft at the same time.
I think, Trevor, these are just politics, and politics is a game of interest. So from where they sit, they don't see a problem because they are politicians. They're supposed to politic. I think it's just that we are giving it a lot of airplay and attention. So they can talk about, their ambitions for 2022, as long as it doesn't affect the common mwananchi and the business people. That's fine. Let them politics, but let's also not give them a lot of attention. Yes, I think there are better things to give attention as far as this whole politics is concerned. Right. So my problem is the attention that they're getting.
Okay, yes. You feel it's too much?
It's too much.
There's more that we should...
Yeah, like now someone just waking up and saying Raila wants to be sleeping in State House and we have it on front page of... then we discuss the whole week about beds on State House.
Right.
No, it's not right. This we are giving a lot of attention.
Okay, you're in a very interesting industry.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the tech industry. Before the handshake, how was Biashara then?
For the clever people, they decided to... as myself, start branching out of the country. Because I just needed the internet to see if I can export my services. However, the economy, of course, because of the money stability, it was a bit tricky. So the handshake for me was a very, very good thing because the climate was calmed and we were able to at least start transacting. However, I would agree, this is not supposed to be the headline. The headline should be things like what Mukisa Kitui said on this very table, that he's disappointed that Kenyans did not take up the opportunities that Jack Ma brought to the country, but Rwanda took them up.
Right.
So what are we doing?
Is that now on our side as citizens?
Yes. Yes.
So even we have a role to play?
Because we need to start putting our government to check, because those are opportunities that the government is saying that it's 30% for women, youth, and people with disabilities, but where are they?
Okay.
We can't be discussing beds, and that cannot be the headline. We need to start working our economy. We just came from 2 elections last year, the previous year, and we're already talking about 2022. It's not even time.
In your view, where do the gaps lie? Because many people would say that, yes, there's the 30% procurement that you're talking about. I may try and apply, but I just can't get it because there are too many red tapes and too many bottlenecks within the government system. You've mentioned Jack Ma having come here. As a youth out there, even if I have an idea, I can't reach him. It's supposed to be the systems from the government that are streamlined enough that if I have a simple idea, regardless of where I come from, I can table it and it can see the light of day.
But you see, the people we have put in charge of these systems are sleeping. So we need to start putting them on check. Because we are the ones who are running the economy, not them. We put them there for them to represent us. They bring the opportunities and tell us, hey, this county has X amount of opportunities. Where are the youth? Where are the women? Where are the people with disabilities?
Do you think the citizens deserve the leaders that they voted for? Because we woke up at 3:30, we were making those queues, we went and we voted, we cast our ballots.
Yes and no, because I think sometimes we really don't put into account what the people are bringing on the table, and that is what we should start asking. What are you going to bring on the table? If you want this seat, what are you doing for the local Mwananchi, not yourself?
Right.
I mean, the things we've been hearing, even like yesterday, I mean, the MPs want a gym. Seriously. There are people who are starving. There are people who... Exactly. There are people who need attention. We don't need to start discussing gyms. But the problem we have, even with our own selves, is we'll start trending the things on Twitter, then without you knowing, we start creating memes and we start making jokes. We don't take the conversation seriously. We don't take them to completion. Okay. That's the problem we have. Okay.
George, are you confident in the war against graft? Having seen what's going on, the DPP says within this year alone, it's 16.8 billion shillings that is in questionable hands. Are you confident that this is leading somewhere?
Thank you very much. Looks like there is some effort, but in terms of this giving us confidence, not really. Because I think we've gone through this before, a lot of hype in the media, but really anybody being put to account, any money really being recovered, and we see to reality, nothing much to account for.
Right. Tell me about Kenya's saving habits in terms of, because you are the CEO of Harambee Sacco. Did you see a difference in Kenya's saving habits during election year and now?
Yes, during elections there is uncertainty.
Right.
And when there is uncertainty, people tend to keep off. So even little cash they have, they resort to informal saving methods. So if your money, for example, in a Sacco savings account or in a bank account, you withdraw it to keep it under your mattress, just in case there is need to run to Uganda or Tanzania, then you already have it with you.
Right.
So it is actually important that the politics that we play creates an environment in which savings can take place. So during such moments, very little activity on the savings front.
Right. Waithaka, as CEO of Centonomy, which is well known for helping Kenyans learn Business 101, the basics of investment and so forth, just generally speaking, what does a healthy or even an unhealthy political scenario in a country do to a country's business and to the common Mwananchi's pocket? Before even we talk about the GDP, like from an eagle's view.
Well, it's what we've been discussing here. It's all about opportunity. And when there's uncertainty in the markets, when there's uncertainty in politics, as you heard, it's not just you and I keeping our money in our pockets, it's business. And most of us who are sitting around this table, we know that during the election year, you send out proposals and you pray. I think we pray most of the time, actually. And by God's grace, I must say, by God's grace, we have seen opportunities even in those years, but they tend to be fewer. And it tends to be harder to convince a company to say, invest in your people, invest in the planning and in the future, because at that moment, everybody is holding on and saying, wait, let's see which way things are going to go, and then we'll make that investment. Correct. So that uncertainty is where the biggest issue is. And when there's uncertainty across the board, then there's not much economic activity, because generally economic activity is based on faith. And if there's no faith that there's going to be a future, and you don't have that faith, then you find yourself in trouble. Wow. So it's generally a good year, and I know my colleagues around this table will tell you that those who have been in business for long enough time, those who have been investors for a long enough time, tend to take advantage of moments like that. Because when everybody is uncertain, they are willing to step out. I think the principle is called the greater fool, to step out when everyone else is not willing to, because the harvest will be much greater. I think there's a biblical story that tells of these two, I think they were lepers, when everybody was frightened and the enemies had been scattered, and everyone was frightened, so they didn't go, and these two went out because they had nothing to fear. And they went and plundered the whole place because everybody was left behind in fear. So sometimes it may be an excellent opportunity to invest when everybody else is fearful, to step out in faith and say, hey, this is my opportunity, because then the upside will be much greater.
We're almost getting into the discussion on financial discipline, but this is still on almost what you're talking about in terms of confidence to invest. And I want to hear your views on devolution, because that's also another place that the DPP said that a lot of plundering is going on there. And even on page 2 of the standard is that the High Court has frozen Samburu Governor Moses Lennon Kulat's bank accounts over corruption investigations, probes suspecting the misuse of 1.6 billion shillings. From where you stand, was devolution even a good idea? Has it been impactful to the business community, or has it made it worse?
You're asking me a terrible question early in the morning. I will try and answer it with the most political correct way to go. So
be honest.
Let's be honest about it. And let's say this. It's similar to a question I get asked all the time. Yeah. Like, is debt good or bad? And there's not an answer like that. It's like asking me, is fire good or bad? Fire is not good or bad in and of itself. It's how you use it that matters. And I have seen, and most of us have seen, the effect of devolution in specific areas when it is used correctly. You see, when you actually bring that authority down into the community and it is used well for the sake of the community, there is nobody around this country that can say that devolution has not worked 100%. No, because there are certain areas where leaders have stood up and have made a difference in their county.
So it depends on the leader.
I completely, I want to disagree with one statement that you've made, but with respect. You said that politicians should just, their job is to politic. I disagree. Politicians, their job is to lead. And when you get a good leader in politics, then you see the results of it. So is devolution good or bad? Neither. It depends on how you use it. No, the jury is not out. There are some counties where you go and ask them, and they are saying, "Thank God for devolution." I have friends in the medical world, and they'll tell you, "Thank God for devolution." Now that you're hearing that they're doing brain surgery in Kapenguria, come on, please tell me that that's not development in this country. But that people are still stealing.
It's still happening as well. George, and I know George, you deal with SACCOs a lot, and I know one of the main challenges is that some people are deducting money from their employees, but it's not being remitted.
Yes, on the SACCO fraud, devolution has not served us very well. First of all, you find we have some SACCOs with national outlook. So you have a head office in Nairobi, then you have to pay taxes to the county governments across. That was not the case before devolution. The other aspect is it brought a lot of disruption with employees moving from national government to county government. Then they change their pay points. So you find quite a number of Kenyans are not very faithful. So when they change their pay points, they tend to ignore the obligations which they had in their SACCOs. So in the last 4 or 5 years, large SACCOs with national outlook, we have accumulated defaulted loans for members who moved from the national government to the county governments. The other challenge which is already rising is that in the new dispensation, the cooperative was devolved. But if you look at the capacity of these counties in terms of managing cooperatives, it is too weak. You visit a county and you find probably one commissioner, and then, like you have seen, some cronies employed to run a whole industry, management, then you find they are not able. So you find, for example, some cheeky businessmen are able to register a cooperative society, a SACCO, for example, in one county, then operate in 4 or 5 different counties, no close supervision. We end up with the shame that you've had in the recent past. But also, on the other hand, we also must appreciate the devolution also brought in devolution of resources. We have also more millionaires even across the country. That has also boosted the cooperative movement across.
Tony, Eve, I'll begin with Tony, of course. What is the role of the private sector in its hand in also this war of graft? As a private sector, if they came out and they say, this is our stand when it comes to corruption, what is the role of the private sector in that?
Well, corruption is a moral issue. And being a moral issue, it means that everybody is involved in the fight against corruption. Right. Because corruption does not happen in a vacuum. Corruption is done by people, whether in private or in public. And by the way, whatever corruption we see in public sector is also a reflection of, we cannot deny and say that there is no corruption in the private sector. Right. And more so when the private sector is trying to do business, as like I was saying, with the government, when you do proposals and you have to, you know, fall into the systems that are there. But the role of the private sector, as far as graft is concerned, is to make sure, first of all, from where they sit, they have very good systems in terms of their own way of dealing with business. And of course, it might sound very simple, but just acting by example from doing business in a moral way, in an ethical way, as a private entity, really is a reflection to, it contributes. But at the same time, that is to make sure that the private sector come together, and when they are doing business, even with government, to be very firm. It's very hard, and we are talking about devolution, to do business with the government. You have solutions for the government, but then you find that when you put up these proposals to either devolution, to the counties or to the national government, you either don't get them because you don't want to be corrupt, or even if you get them, you are frustrated when it comes to paying.
Right.
So,
you seem to be you're nodding in agreement. Yeah. And even as you answer that as well, do you feel as if the private sector is doing enough in voicing and coming out and saying, we've also had enough when it comes to corruption, this is what we expect from the government?
I think sometimes we are put in a position where you really don't want, because of your own security, to go the long haul into pointing actually the corrupt things that are happening. I've suffered. I think from 2015, I just raised my hand and said, I'm not dealing with government anymore because of the frustration. As a young entrepreneur, you have serviced a tender, but it takes almost 2 years to be paid. Those are like 2 financial years, which don't make sense. So your business ends up almost crippling because you put in so much money, you have debt to pay in the bank because you took a loan to service that tender. And the system is just pushing you and forcing you to do all this under backdoor dealings, which of course you as a principle or as a standard, you don't want to start compromising yourself in that way. You end up suffering. So many people either decide, I'm not going to do business with government, or if I'm supplying this and it's for 20 shillings, I'll supply it at 100. So should it delay, then I know I have a markup enough to sustain me for the period of time that I'll take to be paid. Right. So it's a tricky thing. But then to answer your question, if private sector is doing enough, I don't think we are. And probably because we also don't know which channels we need to vent out our frustrations and to what end. Because if you look at the papers every day, the DPP has so many files, but no one is being apprehended. There's no money being recovered. So I think we are also very frustrated with what we are seeing on the headlines.
Right.
A lot,
Right.
And I think if I just jump into to what she's saying, the other thing is the question of moral authority. I think there's a place in the Bible where someone was brought to Jesus and they was told, anybody who has never done this, let be the first one to throw the first stone. I think if that was brought to this context, many private in the private sector business environment will not throw the first stone. And I think that's where we need to start, and that's why I'm saying we need, first of all, to put our house in order before we even go out there. But yes, a lot needs to be done. Yes.
All right. And we have some breaking news coming through to our newsrooms right now. We want to give you an update. It's concerning an accident. This is details that is just coming through from the ground, and we want to show you it's a bit of a bad situation. There were 15 people were last night killed after a Nairobi-bound bus rammed into a stalled lorry in Matu.
Yatta police say that the dead are 12 men, 2 women and a child. The injured were rushed to Matu Level 4 Hospital. Let's just take that again.
Run that by you again one more time. We're just getting information that 15 people were last night killed after a Nairobi-bound bus rammed into a stalled lorry in Matu. That's in Machakos County.
Yatta police say that the dead are about 12 men, 2 women and a child. Of course, we are yet to know further details on that. The injured were rushed to Matu Level 4 Hospital.
All right, we're keeping an eye on that developing story for you, and of course our condolences goes out to the family and friends of all those who lost their loved ones there. We'll try and find out what the reasons were behind this accident, what happened before that, and what the authorities are saying about it. But for now, we're taking a quick break. When we come back, we're talking about financial discipline, where to start. In fact, that is the first question we'll be asking the Centonomy CEO.